My biggest fear would be when the first comes and I don't get the rent.
I found that my tenant had dumped concrete down my toilet. Can you believe Fair Housing fined me $5,000 for that?
How do you onboard your tenants? What do you do?
I don't even know if I do it right. If you're a landlord, don't just rent, rent perfect. The Rent Perfect podcast with property expert and private investigator, David Pickron.
Well, hello and welcome to this episode, this exciting episode with Rent Perfect. We have Casey Franchini with us, a investment coach, which I'm so excited to introduce you all. Casey, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, David. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm so excited.
Hey, I'm really glad you're here because a lot of people think there are just two options as we manage our real estate. And one is to buy property and to hire a property manager and just take care of it and don't worry about it. Or the other option is to buy and you have to put up with the hassles, and that scares a lot of people. But there's actually a third option, and that is to have a coach. And so I'm excited to have an investment coach online to give people that third option to say, hey, maybe this will work for a lot of people. I know I coach some people through. We need more people like you, Casey. So I'm excited to learn about you today and kind of get a little bit of your philosophy. And so thanks for coming today. Real quick, subscribe so you can get this good information that we have in the future. And we're just going to start with Casey. Give us a little background on yourself. Tell us how you kind of got into doing what you do.
Sure. So I got in real estate right before the market crash in 2007. I was a real estate agent in Southern California, and I had a really hard time getting listings, to be honest, because I looked really young when I was young.
And you still do.
Yeah, I know. So I looked really young then.
I'm like, are there 16-year-olds doing real estate in California? So
I know. And so it's Orange County, $1 million homes. And like these, rich 65-year-olds did not want someone who looked like a teenager selling their house. So it was difficult. I got listings, but it wasn't what I had always dreamed. So I found my niche with real estate investors. And I helped flippers find good flips on the MLS. So that's what I did. So I started off there. And then my husband and I moved to Memphis. And it was here in Memphis where I realized, hey, we can afford some rental properties that aren't $1 zillion.
Exactly.
And we started buying rentals in Memphis.
Awesome. So you took a little bit of that knowledge you had out there in California and you said, I was just in Toledo, Ohio. And I'm not saying that Toledo is the place to go right now. It can be. I'm sure there's great deals. But a guy stood up in the front of this meeting. He's like, I've got a home for sale for $29,000. And I'm like, I was ready to get my checkbook out and say, the whole house is just $29,000 coming from California out here in Arizona. And I'm sure some places in Memphis right now, prices are high. And I think that's a reason why people are so scared. They're almost having a hard time buying a home for themselves, let alone an investment home. And that's what we're going to talk about today. How can they feel confident in becoming an investor? And a lot of people that talk to me, they just want somebody to say, yeah, go for it, or yeah, you're right, or you're on the right track. And I think that's what coaches have so much to offer. It's just that confidence that people need to pull that trigger on their
that's what I was missing, honestly, in California. So when I was helping the investors do flips, I wanted to get into real estate, and I didn't necessarily really want to flip. I wanted to buy rental properties. And so my husband, we were newly married, and I was like, let's buy some rentals in California. And we looked at the time, even there were still rentals in Inland Empire house that would totally make money. They were under 200, like $150,000 to $180,000 that would rent. We made 30 to 40 offers on houses. We were in contract on some, backed out. We were in counter, never went all the way through. Just something held us back. And I didn't really realize what it was until we started buying houses when we moved to Memphis. And I realized what it was that held me back was a couple things. One, I didn't know anyone else who owned rental properties, not a soul. My friend Mikey's grandma owned 10. Like that's the most that I knew.
Right.
And so I didn't have anyone to give me any validation that my decisions were right. I mean, your down payment's a huge chunk of money for most people. I mean, for a rental property, that's a lot of their savings, most of your savings for a lot of people. And you can't just kind of guess at that. You have to make sure that you're doing the right thing and you're spending your money wisely and making sound investment decisions, because it's not just so easy to go return the house at Target.
No, exactly.
You change your mind.
Exactly.
So I was missing out on that, the validation and getting help. And so even with 7 years of real estate agent experience, I still got someone to help me with my first rental property when we moved to Memphis, because I decided that, look, I'm not going to do the same thing I did last time and, make 30 to 40 offers, but never really get anything. I'm going to do it. I'm going to take action, and I'm going to get help this time.
And I think I agree with all that. And I think a big struggle that a lot of people have, Casey, is there's never the news story that someone bought a rental property and made good appreciation and good payment and all went well. That story is never on the news. It's never in the newspaper, right? It's always the guy who trashed the home, who stayed over for 3 years, who tied up a landlord in bankruptcy court. And there's this fear of the media that a lot of people read and they think, man, I would never be a landlord. And yet you and I both know it's the best business in the world, right?
It is. I wouldn't trade it for anything.
So you get to Memphis, you're ready to jump in it yourself. Was there a big difference between kind of helping flippers and then actually doing it yourself? I know that the confidence you're talking about and what you learned there, but tell me about your first deal.
So the difference I'll say between, flipping and buying rentals is that, first of all, when I was helping the investors find flips, it wasn't my own money. It was their money.
Right.
I mean, I knew rehab and I could price it, and I could go to a house and say, okay, it's going to cost X amount to fix up. I knew comps really well. I knew my market really well. I knew what the ARV would be. So I'd come back to them with all this information. There you go.
Right.
And it would be on MLS. So I'll take my commission now. Thank you. but when it's your own money, and when you're not $1 million rich flipper person, you have to be a little more cautious. And you have to be like, in every way possible, is this going to be a win? Is there any possible way I'm going to fail and lose my butt? So for our first rental property, now the house we bought in, the house I live in right now, I knew that the listing agent, now I'm the buyer. The listing agent, though, I knew they owned rentals. I forget how I knew that. They said that they did at some point, because my real estate agent was terrible, and I kind of went around her and bought my house with them.
She's not going to watch this, is she?
Nope, and I don't care. She knows we're not friends.
Oh my God.
So, but it was a long time ago. This is 9 years ago. So, I called this lady back like 4 years later after we bought this house. Like, oh, she might not even remember me, but I knew she sold my house twice. I remember her saying that. So I'm going to remind her of the house, and then maybe she'll remember me. And I said, hey, my name is Casey. I remember you had kind of said you guys owned some rental properties. They owned like 20. And I said, I was wondering if maybe you could help me with my first one. And she's like, well, I don't do that, but I don't take care of the rental side. I just do like residential home sales, and the luxury, more higher end stuff now. She said, but my husband takes care of the rentals. He can help you. And I was like, okay, and he was so happy to help me, to have a young person excited about rental properties and real estate. He drove me by all his houses. He helped share with me comps and good neighborhoods, and really helped me validate my decisions and help me learn my market and to learn the things that I need to learn to make the right decisions myself. And so he helped me with my first one.
I do love that about our community. I think our community is willing to help. A lot of us show up to meetings or to conferences, and it's kind of like there's enough for all of us out there. Let's, and when I go to these conferences or, these paid kind of come and we'll show you how to buy a bunch of homes, I don't know what the exact percentage is, but the majority of people that show up and pay all kinds of money never do a thing with it.
No, they don't.
Because they just don't have the stomach for it. But that's why I love you as an option, where someone that's like, I think I want to do it, but I don't know anybody who does real estate. Yeah. And nowadays with technology, Casey can help me out of Memphis, Tennessee, make the right decision here in Phoenix, Arizona. And so I do like that. Have you made any mistakes, Casey? Any mistakes that kind of haunt you a little bit, or maybe just was a good education?
Yes. All the mistakes have been tenant mistakes. They have. It's, choosing the right tenant. I feel like, that's not the glamorous thing to talk about. It's not. But that's the make it or break it to investor in a rental property owner's success. I mean, you can get a great deal. It doesn't matter if you got the house for free. I mean, I guess that would kind of help. Right. But otherwise, that would kind of help. If you have a tenant that destroys your property, if you have a tenant that, gets pit bulls, doesn't tell you, they're not insured, they go and bite the neighbor's kid, now everyone's getting sued, or they smoke in the house, and now you've got to spend $5,000 to get it repainted, or they have a terrible credit score and you never check credit scores and background checks, and they don't pay, they know the system and they're going to live there rent free for a year. Like that just will ruin anybody's love and desire for wanting to own more properties. Like nothing will make you want to sell faster than having a tenant that costs you a lot of money and headache.
You know, that is interesting because, you know, when people buy their first rental property, they're always worried about, am I getting a good price? You know, how much is the down payment? Do I have that? They worry about so much about that, what I call that first investment, right? The actual physical brick and mortars. And no one really thinks about that second investment, which is that tenant who's going to take care of it. And Casey, I'm sure you're like me, but I'd like to look at it more as our business partner. You know, we're kind of getting together and we're both going to manage this house. I'm going to buy it and pay for it. You're going to manage it. I'm going to ask you to pay one bill a month. That's the rent, right? And I'm going to turn a pretty healthy asset over to you. And so I love that when I talk to coaches or people that are landlords, they realize, man, the tenant is everything.
Everything.
You know? So obviously we need good appreciating neighborhoods. So let's talk about that real quick. I know that's one of your big pushes is, you know, a lot of people who get into this business come to me and say, hey, I want to be a landlord. I'm going to buy a fourplex. And I'm like, do you really want to be a babysitter? Or do you really want to, you know, acquire wealth? And I actually push a lot of people away from fourplexes. But tell me your concept there.
So I hear the same things. You know, I know Bigger Pockets pushes a lot of, you know, multifamily. And yeah, multifamily is great if you're Grant Cardone and you're out buying these multi-million-dollar, very nice luxury complexes. Heck yeah, get me into that. But, right. You know, people think I'm going to buy multifamily if they have a budget and they barely qualify for anything. And so they're thinking, okay, well, where can I go find the cheapest duplex, triplex, or fourplex? And it's like, okay, yeah, you can do that. And you can get on your horse and say you own 4 units, but look at where your units are because you could only afford a $200,000 fourplex. Right. You know, you're getting low quality tenants that don't have good credit scores, that don't pay rent on time, don't care if they get evicted because they've probably been evicted before. And you're not in appreciating neighborhoods. And to get back to your thing about appreciation, I feel like it's important to have appreciation, you know, and cash flow. You need to have these things because you need all of it to sustain you and to have a healthy investment and to carry you through into your own future, your own, you know, right. Retirement. Cash flow is great for today and you need cash flow, and appreciation is going to take care of you tomorrow. So you need to buy in appreciating neighborhoods, areas that are going up in value, where the police department's doing their job and the city is making improvements, and you're not seeing empty strip malls and, you know, mom and pop shops leaving, and, you know, you're not seeing like schools going downhill and people not wanting to move in there. I mean, you can kind of see into the future 5 years. Sure. You can guess what the neighborhood's going to be like, but what about 10 years? What about 15 years from now? What about when that neighborhood turns over and is now the C-class neighborhood than when it was once a B-class? You're likely still going to own the property then. So you have to kind of really make sure that you're buying a house for the long term. Some investors are short-term investors. You know, they get commercial loans, they're in it for 5 to 7 years, and then they're going to sell. So they don't care so much about the neighborhood. But for most, I feel like mom and pop investors that own just a few units and are looking to really just put their cash savings, instead of in the bank, put it in a very safe piece of real estate. They need to protect it by putting it in a neighborhood that's going to get better.
So I 100% agree. You know, we talk about a little bit of mistakes, but in January, I bought a property down in Tucson, Arizona. And Tucson, in this certain area, this area I bought in is right on the brink from the nice part of Tucson and from the crummy, like right on that line. And I thought, okay, I'm gonna take my chances. As I'm talking to, you know, the real estate agent on their side, they're like, this is a freshly new paved street. We hardly have any of those in Tucson. I'm like, okay, I've never heard that before. Isn't all the streets, you know, freshly paved? But so I started thinking, wow, okay, this is kind of a different type of city to do business in. In rehabbing it, it's been broken into twice, right? Now, I'm a seasoned investor. I have 16 properties. I can afford to take some chances like this and kind of get hurt a little bit and go, oh, you know, I took a chance. Maybe I won't long-term this. Maybe I'll just flip it, sell it. And that's probably what I'll end up doing, is not hold this one because of the neighborhood is turning out to be more of a pain to manage people in. But I can afford that. a first-time buyer bought this property. I'm a new landlord, and all of a sudden now their home's getting broken into, and they took spray paint cans, paint all over my walls. It said drug addict on it, and it's an interesting project that I'm doing, and I'm still learning, and I've been in this business 30 plus years. But yeah, stay out of places like that. If you're just getting into this business, I think you would coach them to do that. So I was under the impression, hey, we're going to take that older neighborhood, rehab it. It's right on the border of a good one. And it still might get there. Maybe I'm just a little bit ahead of my time there on that one. So
yeah, it takes some time. And honestly, you're right. More seasoned investors that have, can take more risks. The loss doesn't bother them. They can buy in the D-class neighborhoods. They can buy and take their risks, But for people that are just starting out and, they're saving all they can to buy their first investment property, it's so, so important, in my opinion, and many other people's opinions, to make your first investment property purchase a win, a solid cash flowing property in an appreciating neighborhood. You need to have that strong base so then you can take some more risks. There's so much to learn for the first one. Yeah. There's so much to learn. So learn the basics, doesn't mean you got to make $1 million a month for your cash flow deal, but let's get some good solid cash flow. And I like to teach $300 a month after fixed expenses. It's what I like my students to see in an appreciating neighborhood, that they can get good quality tenants that have, are college educated would be great. I love the B-class neighborhoods that young families kind of move into as like their first home. I feel like those types of tenants, have like just time on their side and life is great. And they just graduated college, or they're just starting a family. They're not all down and depressed. Life hasn't beat them down. And they're just like, looking for an escape and a way out. It's just, and you can't choose tenants, obviously, but you can choose the neighborhoods. And being in a more up and coming neighborhood that's got a solid future is going to give you the best chance of a good tenant.
Absolutely. So how do you qualify a good tenant? Tell me kind of a criteria maybe you kind of generally use, or how do you teach that?
Sure. So I have made my mistakes through tenant selection. And at first, I used to not do credit checks. And I have properties in C and B class neighborhoods, and I used to not do credit checks in the C class because I thought, everyone's got bad credit here. Why do I even want to know?
Right.
Like, it doesn't matter. Stupid me.
Yeah.
So, now you have to really stick to your guns. If you write down on a piece of paper, these are my tenant qualifications, stick with it. Even if it takes you longer than you anticipated to fill your vacancy, I would rather have no tenant than a bad tenant. So my qualifications are, they have to at least make 3 times the rent. And I've seen in my area now some property management companies asking for 3.5 or 4 times the rent, depending upon the neighborhood. So sometimes the worse neighborhood or the more risky the tenant is, you have to make more money. Like they want a bigger safeguard that you can pay. So 3 times the rent. You have to pass a credit and background check, and I require at least 680 for a credit score.
Okay.
No evictions, obviously.
Okay.
No bankruptcies. I've had a bankruptcy person before, and that was just nothing but headaches.
Yes.
And let's see. They have to have a solid work history. I want to know that they've had the same job for 2 years.
Okay.
I don't like jumping around. I don't want you going from a horse trainer to now I work at Burlington Coat Factory to now I work at McDonald's to now I clean hospitals. Like, no, that's too like wishy-washy,
right?
Because I feel like the job that you can hold down tells a lot about somebody.
Yes.
It tells that they're responsible, that they can show up on time, that they can fulfill obligations. A solid job history shows a lot more than just I have a job and have money. It tells more. So now I will make an exception though for people that just graduated college and just got a new job, or they're maybe moving or changing careers, like they got a promotion, and they're moving into the area, that sort of thing. So it all depends. And I feel like, that's my perk as being a landlord, is I get to choose, but I want to I'm gauging to make sure that they can pay rent on time, and that they're, they're good people, they're going to pay, all of that.
The story needs to make sense, right? The story
needs to make sense. Yes. I want to know that I can count on them. Like, can I count on you? Are you a flake? Basically is what that's going to tell me. You can't come up with excuses all the time that everyone in your life died and that's why you can't pay so many funerals. No.
Don't you wish you could just ask them, hey, are you a flake? And they would like tell you the truth. I mean,
I know. I wish.
all
I
the
wish.
stuff we have to go through. Hey, we have been, since this eviction moratorium, we've been really teaching getting 12 months worth of bank statements, showing money coming in, showing rent going out. You know, we do these landlord verifications, and we just don't seem to get the truth told to us in these times, you know. And so I don't know if you've ever thought about getting bank statements, some hardcore evidence of coming in and out of there.
I've not asked for bank statements. But some people who have said, you know, when I look at their credit report and it would say they have X amount of money that they owe, you know, on their credit card.
Right.
A couple times I have asked, let me see your bank statement. Like, cause they say, oh, we have money. I'm like, well, then let me prove it.
Right.
But otherwise, no, I haven't. I didn't know people would be willing to give you 12 months of bank statements.
Well, right now it's a good economy, or it's a good place for us landlords to be. So they're willingly giving me anything I ask for. And what I love about that is, you know, I'm a private investigator. I pull eviction records. I pull all that stuff. But when there's no eviction records in the last 2 years in the courts because of the eviction moratorium, I find out, you know, and then I find out I'm getting lied to by prior landlords. I've got to find a hardcore evidence that they paid their rent. Bank statements is kind of where I'm going. Now, in the future, as this eviction moratorium gets further and further in the rearview mirror, I might pull off of that. But good strategy right now for new investors to take that on. So
I like that.
Yeah, that's perfect. So we talked a little bit about when you coach somebody, kind of tell me how it goes. Someone calls you up and says, hey, Casey, heard about you, saw you online. I'm thinking about this. Kind of take me through how you take them from curious to actually buying their first property.
Sure. So the first thing that I ask them is, do you have money accessible for a down payment? Because my program is an action program. This isn't just let's not like a little boot camp. Like, oh, you can learn, take your knowledge, and then apply it another time.
Right.
My coaching program is one-on-one, and the purpose of it is for me to guide you and hold your hand through Zoom and all sorts of, you know, personal interaction ways to get you through the finish line, to get you your first rental property within a few months. Okay. So you have to be financially ready. So one of the first questions I ask is, do you have money for a down payment? And I require them to have at least $30,000, and that's the bare minimum. $30,000 to $50,000 minimum is what I require, because I don't want to put them in a bad situation and have them buy in a bad neighborhood. So I feel like you can buy a $100,000 house with $30,000. They also have to have a credit score of 680 or above, because they need to qualify for a loan, and I want them to get a decent loan. I don't want there to be credit issues or having problems with debt to income ratio and not qualifying. So those things, you know, are kind of qualifiers right away. And then they also have to be ready and willing and wanting to buy a rental property now, and not say, oh, well, I'm getting married next month, so maybe not now is a good time.
Gotcha.
So they have to have those three things ready to go, some money available, whether it, you know, it can be in your HELOC. I have students that, you know, I don't have it yet, but they're going to get a HELOC. So I'll work with them through that, or borrow from 401k or cash, that sort of thing. So first that's out of the way. And then I explain to them the process, and there's several milestones you have to go through. And I work with them together one-on-one, like I said, through Zoom, to get them through each stage, because for most people, buying a property in itself is overwhelming. Now, 90% of my students are out-of-state investors. A lot of them live in California or on the East Coast, and they can't afford to buy rentals near them. And it's scary as heck to go think of buying something somewhere far away that you've never been before. Like, how can you do that? You know, like what? I mean, it even sounds scary, and I help people do it all the time. Right. It just sounds scary. Right. So I help them figure out financing. I help them do market research. I'm going to pick a profitable rental area that's good for them and for their goals and risk level and their situation, because everybody's different. There's not just 1, 2, or 3 great areas to invest in. There's tons of areas, but what's best for like Sally Sue won't be best for you. So we got to pick the right area. And then I teach them how to run the numbers and do proper property analysis. And I help them with contracts and, you know, building a team, finding members, teach them how to do rehab. My husband and I, we rehab all of our own houses. So every house needs something to get fixed up. It does. And you don't want to get taken advantage of with a contractor, especially if you're out of state and you can't be there to kind of babysit them and read their, you know, look at their estimates. You won't know what they're missing and stuff like that. And then finally, my favorite, most important part, property management. You know, whether you find a property management company to help you or you landlord yourself, I'll teach them how to do all that. So the steps go in order as they would appear. And the goal is for my students to get their first rent check by the time the program's done.
Awesome. That's perfect. Hey, I love your website name, Brick by Brick Wealth. Why? Tell me why you picked that.
Because, you know, building wealth is not an overnight thing. It's not a get rich quick, especially with real estate. You know, it's a process. It's brick by brick. And, you know, and I picked brick because you build houses with bricks. So brick by brick, like one house at a time, you will get wealthy. You will make passive income. You'll have generational wealth. You'll have all the things that you want. And it is, you know, what do they say? 90% of millionaires are millionaires through real estate. It's the easiest way for the average person. Right. For you and me, for everyone.
Right.
This is the surefire, safest, easiest way, in my opinion, to become a millionaire. And you can do it over time while you sleep if you buy in appreciating areas. And in the meantime, you can have a great lifestyle bump by having an invisible person live with you and give you monthly income checks.
Yes, absolutely. And unlike the stock market that goes up and down and up and down, rental homes really rely on rent coming in every month. If you don't have to sell them, it doesn't matter if the price of the rental property goes down. You're not doing it. You're getting a cash flow and you're getting your payment paid off. That appreciation will come over time. Even if it dips a little bit, 2008, 2009 didn't touch me at all because I didn't have to sell. And so it really is a safe investment. I believe we're probably going to come into a little bit of a harder economy here towards the end of 2022. I'm still buying, and it doesn't scare me at all. In fact, if the rates go, or if the prices of homes come down a little bit, that means I get to buy cheaper then too. And so we really should just find opportunity in great economies and find opportunity when the economy is going a little bit south. Now, let's wrap this up, Casey, and I really appreciate it. What do you think your success rate of someone who calls you and says, I do have $30,000, $50,000 in the bank, I do have a credit score, I am ready to go. What would you say your success rate is? I know I'm asking you to come up with a number, and I didn't pre-qualify this, as I talk to you, but how
Honestly,
many people actually do this?
Most all of them.
Okay.
Almost all, because the qualifications are tight. And it's not a lot of qualifications. You have to have the money, you have to have a credit score, and you have to be ready and willing to take action and do it. And because I hold people accountable, it's one-on-one. So it's not like it's a $5 program. So there is an investment involved. And the fact that people have to show up and they have to see me at meeting dates that we've planned one-on-one. Right. Sometimes I know students will do the homework the night before because they're going to meet me. And I know because some of the things that they'll say or they'll show me, I'm like, oh, you just did that because you knew you were going to meet me. But that's the brilliant thing about one-on-one is that I hold you accountable. If I am not going to, sell more coaching programs if my students aren't successful.
Right.
They are not getting their first rental. How am I going to get more students? So, I really push them. They will do the work and they'll get their property. The success rate's very high.
Oh, I love it. So Casey, if someone wants to get a hold of you, how can they do that?
They can email me directly. It's Casey, CASEY at brickbybrickwealth.com. And I'm also on Instagram. It's at brickbybrickwealth. And I'm on Instagram all the time. I basically live on the gram.
I love it. I love it. It's been a pleasure meeting you, talking with you today. Been following you for a while on Instagram and kind of seeing all that you're doing. We don't just invite anybody on our show. You have to show that you know what you're doing, and we feel like, we know now, we know what you're doing. So if you're looking for that coach or somebody just to get you over the top, Casey is the one to go to. I really appreciate it, Casey. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful day, and continue to rent perfect.
Thank you so much, David. It was a joy being on. I appreciate it.
No problem. Bye-bye.